The online dating scene was still pretty new and fairly unregulated.
I've been single for like 5 years. I lived in Long Island forever. All of a sudden I'm in Brooklyn, I moved, and everyone's like, oh, what are you doing? Do you want to hang out? I thought you'd want to hang out. You know, it's like, no, I can't hang out. I'm in Brooklyn. You know, I moved here to find a husband.
Numerous calls come into 911 stating that someone's been struck by a vehicle on the Bell Parkway. Those last seconds of his life were seconds that he didn't deserve.
I was just shocked. Just kind of go through this point of disbelief.
It was Michael Sandy. It could have been anyone. They weren't looking for a black man. They weren't looking for a white man. They were looking for a victim.
You can feel how he must have felt when he saw these guys coming down and then running for his life.
Imagine the sheer terror that he was probably feeling.
This guy was lured to his death.
We had a rogue device on this wireless network. So the idea was, all right, well, where are they?
Kind of just feel your whole body collapse in that moment. It takes your breath away.
July 2006. Brooklyn, New York. 28-year-old Michael Sandy is on top of the world. He's just landed a job as a designer for IKEA and is finally pursuing his dreams in the big city.
This is my new apartment.
This is Mike's first apartment in New York City.
And his best friend Patrick is by his side.
Mike was really excited about his first Brooklyn apartment. I mean, he was all joy. He had a laugh that could, carry a room.
I think it's cool.
Well, it's a wrap. We finished the bed. Made much more space out of this tiny little room. It's wonderful.
I'm glad my hair has changed.
It's rocking.
Oh my gosh. I mean, what did we look like there, right? We were just absolute best friends. Comfortable, really comfortable with each other. He was that friend that would, do anything for you. Loyal, sensitive, compassionate. And those people don't come around very often.
Life hasn't always been easy for Michael, growing up as a young gay black man in conservative Bellport, New York.
His struggle with being gay in Long Island was definitely a thing. Some parts of it was because he wasn't necessarily out to his parents, but I think that they all had this beautiful kind of unspoken understanding.
I've known Michael Sandy since we were kids. And Michael spoke very closely with his friends about who he wanted to make connections with. And being in a small town, a conservative town, and a conservative family, these things were kind of hard to explore. He wanted to work in Brooklyn, live in Brooklyn, breathe Brooklyn. So I think what was very attractive to him was really that social element and to really find a connection, to find love. I feel like he had to make that move to survive and to express who he was and to be who he was meant to be.
Michael is now living his dream in hip Williamsburg, Brooklyn, an artsy neighborhood just a quick subway ride from Manhattan.
Michael is very agile, and he made everything he did look very easy. Okay. Yeah, that was great. But he was a very natural dancer. So that was Michael dancing in a parking garage. Actually, I was filming this. We were 1 and 2 and 3 and punch and, turn and spin. So we had it all choreographed. It's tough to kind of think about the last time you see someone. But it was a good last in-person memory.
As much as he was so gregarious and outgoing, personally, he was very shy. He had never dated anyone. In 11 years of me knowing him, never had a boyfriend.
He was on the hunt to find love.
In the early fall of 2006, just a few months after moving to Brooklyn, Michael goes out with Patrick and a small group of friends. Another friend captures a lighthearted moment on video.
I've been single for like 5 years. I lived on Long Island forever. No one ever wanted to take me to dinner. No one wanted to ever go out. All of a sudden, I'm in Brooklyn. I moved, and everyone's like, "Oh, what are you doing? Do you want to hang out? I thought you want to hang out." You know, it's like, no, I can't hang out. I'm in Brooklyn. What happened 5 years ago? Right? It's insane. You know, I moved here to find a husband. Let me stop.
The last time I hung out with Michael was very close to the time that he had died.
So, on the evening of October 8th, 2006, numerous calls come into 911 stating that someone's been struck by a vehicle on the Bell Parkway.
It's 10 p.m., and the scene is a dark section of the highway near Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, in an area known as Plum Beach.
That car never stopped. It was a hit and run. Very serious car accident. From injuries, he's unconscious.
The victim, a young black male gravely injured but still clinging to life, is rushed to Brookdale Hospital.
We have a victim. We don't know who he is. We don't know necessarily how he got there. Now we have to figure out why this occurred.
Investigators question witnesses at the scene.
This incident occurs at night when it's dark and everyone's vision is limited. No one really has a good description of the vehicle and or the license plate.
Police search the area and soon make a crucial discovery.
They come across a vehicle that's parked in a parking lot across the highway. The car was still running.
Police recover a photo ID from the vehicle. It's an unmistakable match with the man gravely injured on the parkway.
And through the documentation that they find, they come to find out that this vehicle is owned by a young man by the name of Michael Sandy. So we have a victim. We know his address. And we wanted to know why he would have driven from Williamsburg to the other side of Brooklyn at night in the dark.
Plum Beach is just a dead stretch of sand, kind of a weeded beach where nobody really takes the sun. And it's just a quiet little stretch of beach.
So something's not adding up here. What's going on?
Later that night, some eyewitnesses reveal a disturbing detail.
So some of the accounts that the officers are getting are stating that this young black male is being chased by a number of white males from the parking lot along the Bell Parkway and then being struck by a vehicle as he's being chased. So based on witness accounts, these young men now start to pull him off the highway.
His body got dragged back to the side of the road. They rifled through his pockets before running off. The witnesses saw that.
Given the races that people are specifically noting, we're wondering, is this something racially motivated? You know, this may have been a targeted attack.
A new detail about Michael's final moments comes to light.
The computer logged into America Online, and a conversation was visible on the screen.
The more police learn, the more personal and tragic the case becomes.
It all is a thing to me that stems from his willingness and wanting connection.
He left pointers, he left the breadcrumbs. And like that, "I'll see you in 20 minutes" was his final moments as he walked out the door.
Eyewitnesses tell police they saw Michael Sandy being chased by several unidentified white men alongside a New York City highway before he was struck by a hit-and-run driver. Hours later, in the early morning, Michael lies in a coma at Brookdale Hospital in Brooklyn.
He's unconscious, so he can't speak to us to tell us how this all went down.
Meanwhile, word of the shocking incident is slowly spreading among Michael's loved ones.
I got a phone call, and I don't believe anyone knew the full details. I didn't really receive any information other than the fact that he was in the hospital on life support.
One of my good friends called and he said Michael was in a pretty severe accident. Like, I just felt my whole body fall to the ground hearing that. Then you started seeing it on the news.
I was working as a reporter for the New York Post when this happened. We were told that he was still alive, he was in critical condition, and he was unable to communicate to police exactly what happened.
We're talking to the family, kind of getting a clearer picture as to who Michael is. Yeah, they find out that Michael is 28, soon to be 29-year-old male, and he was an interior designer, and was just a super nice guy. Probably had zero enemies. And we wanted to try to figure out why he may have suddenly find himself in a conflict with other people.
When I was at the hospital, his parents were just desperately trying to find any resource and help that they could.
It wasn't until I spoke with Mr. and Mrs. Sandy to really know the severity of the impact. They were holding up. They had wonderful support with their family, but it was hard to see them hurting the way that they were.
We were able to see him, and he looked rough. I mean, his head was completely swollen. And, you know, being on life support, there was very little kind of hope in the outcome. And I was just shocked. Yeah, you just kind of go through this point of disbelief.
All the machines beeping and blaring and all the hustle and bustle in the hospital to begin with, it was hard to fully absorb what was happening. But it was tough to see him in that position. Feels like a dream happening. Very bad dream.
Detectives have little to explain the attack on Michael, other than the vague possibility it was racially motivated. So they head to Michael's apartment in Williamsburg, hoping his roommates can shed some light on his plans that evening.
So the investigators are now looking to interview his roommates. Want to find out if he has any problems. Did he have a beef with somebody? Was he looking to settle a score? You know, we need to figure out why he may have gone from Williamsburg to Chief's Head Bay. And to see maybe is there any conflict that was occurring that evening.
His roommates don't recall anything out of the ordinary that evening, but they mention that they saw Michael chatting on the internet earlier in the night. They chalk it up to some innocent online dating.
We are hearing from Michael Sandy's roommates that he is single. And like many people were doing when this whole online dating thing was starting to really take hold, he was going out and talking to people online and going out to meet them.
The internet really emerged when we were young adults. And this is one way where we could connect to people of our age and have that social interaction, even if it was a digital form of connection.
So back in 2006, the online dating scene was still pretty new and fairly unregulated. So you were talking to people online and not really knowing who was on the other end.
Now investigators begin to question if race had anything to do with the crime, or whether Michael's innocent search for love online may have led him down a dangerous path.
Every new thing has its benefits and its drawbacks. And we had seen, certainly by 2006, that the online environment was one that was being used pretty heavily by gay men in particular. And one of the drawbacks of the internet and online dating is that people will use them as avenues to target others.
So now we potentially want to look at Michael Sandy's computer to see if that is going to give us any investigative evidence to corroborate that.
Investigators find Michael's laptop in his bedroom.
Now we start to shift their attention to, did Michael Sandy maybe talk to somebody online and went to go meet them, and maybe that scenario went wrong.
To explore the possibility that a crime may have originated on the internet, investigators reach out to computer specialist Denise Dragos.
The New York City Police Department had one of the very first computer crime units in the country. It was called CIT back in those days, Computer Investigation and Technology Unit. Eventually, it became the Computer Crime Squad. The detective squad, they needed assistance to actually handle the laptop as evidence and preserve what was visible on the screen and whatever else may be on that computer. So I got my kit together, which we would bring out to digital crime scenes. Hard drives, USB drives, other tools potentially that may come in handy, and we responded. The computer was logged into America Online, and a conversation was visible on the screen.
City police believe a computer chat may have lured Michael Sandy into an attack, as Michael lays gravely injured in the hospital. NYPD computer specialist Denise Dragos discovers that Michael's computer is still logged into a chat room on America Online.
The chat conversation happened the evening of the 8th. Before the incident, basically it's two users, Fisheye Fox, and a second account which went by the screen name Drum and Bass 007, which is Michael's account. They're having a conversation. They're talking about potentially smoking marijuana together, and they say how old each of them are, what they look like.
So in the initial conversation that Michael Sandy's having with this fish-eyed fox, they agree to meet up. They talk about meeting up in Plum Beach, Brooklyn, which is where he is struck by a vehicle.
They make plans to meet there at 8 o'clock, but it's clear that things didn't go as planned.
So searching through Michael's AOL chat history, when they meet up, Fish-Eyed Fox is not alone. There are other people around, which makes Michael Sandy feel uneasy. So he gets spooked and he leaves.
By 8:45, Michael returns to the chat from his apartment in Williamsburg.
He goes back to his computer, and Fish-Eyed Fox is saying, hey, what happened to you and why'd you leave? And Michael Sandy says, well, I thought we were meeting one-on-one and there were other people around, so it just felt weird, so I left. And now Fish-Eyed Fox is trying to convince him, oh, yeah, I don't know who those guys were, or, we can just meet one-on-one, it'll just be the two of us. So come on back out and we'll meet up again.
By 10 o'clock, Michael is found by the side of the parkway just yards from the Plum Beach parking lot.
It all is a thing to me that stems from his willingness and wanting connection. Like, so much went out of his brain for that possibility. And the real hard part is that he just didn't listen to his instinct that day. And he went back.
Looking back, I got the impression that he might have had an idea of what he was doing was potentially risky. I don't think it was an accident that he left his computer on with the chat window open. He left pointers, he left the breadcrumbs. And like that, I'll see you in 20 minutes was his final moments. as he walked out the door.
Police now believe this online chat between Michael and Fisheye Fox is a key piece of evidence, and they're hoping it may lead them to a suspect.
We started doing live system analysis at the time, just to preserve the information that was there. So even without touching it, did little old school pictures, traditional pictures of it, just to make sure that even if it crashed, at least we had that. We were running special software on the machines, which copied out all of the system memory to an external drive. So that in that case, we were able to get a lot of information and preserve it forensically in real time.
For investigators, it's now imperative that they track down the man Michael was chatting with, who goes by the screen name Fisheye Fox. But due to privacy laws, that will require a court order.
You have to remember, back in 2006, the internet was a very different place. Some of these social media companies were not necessarily forthcoming with information about their clients.
We started doing the process to subpoena America Online to see who owns this Fisheye Fox account, if we could identify that person.
On October 9th, a day after Michael Sandy was struck on the Belt Parkway, the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office issues a subpoena to America Online to disclose the name of the individual who goes by the chat handle Fisheye Fox.
So in the investigation, we come to find out that Fisheye Fox is a screen name that is owned by someone by the name of John Fox, who has an IP address that comes back to Brooklyn. And thus, the investigators now go to that address in Brooklyn where the ping of this IP address is coming back to.
The address on Brigham Street is just a few blocks from Plum Beach in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, where Michael was struck.
It was a row houses on this block on Brigham Street. We pretty much set up a surveillance operation with numerous detectives in different cars. And as all the teams are sitting there, somebody shows up at that house and walks up to the front gate. All of the police cars, come screeching up, and the detectives jump out and approach the individual. We identified ourselves as being detectives, NYPD. And he says, "What's going on, guys?"
NYPD detectives have tracked the source of a computer chat room message they believe was used to lure Michael Sandy to a vicious attack. Based on the IP address linked to the message, they descend on a house in Brooklyn.
The gentleman lived at that address. He said, "I just got off work. Can I help you guys?" So we asked him his name.
The chat room message was from a user called Fisheye Fox, who police have identified as John Fox. But that is not the man's name. And there's no one named John Fox who lives at his address.
So that was a little bit of a pucker moment. Like, oh crap. We asked, "Do you have internet service?" He goes, "Yeah, as a matter of fact, I just got a new router." So we're like, "All right, can we come inside and talk to you about a situation?" He says, "Yeah, come on inside." As soon as we walk into the kitchen, right there on the kitchen table, we can see a brand new wireless router.
So new that no security has been set up on it yet. Detective Dragos realizes that means anyone could have tapped into this internet service. And a quick check reveals her theory to be correct.
It appeared that now we had a rogue device on this wireless network. The homeowner just had a new router and it wasn't secured and was logged into surreptitiously by this Fisheye Fox user.
Detective Dragos knows that if the rogue device is logged into this router, it must be close by, within range of the Wi-Fi signal.
All right, well, where are they? They have to be within a stone's throw. So let's try and figure out where they are right now. So I'm like, I can try to talk to them and stir the pot and see what happens. So I have an undercover account, and I'm like, hey, what's up? It was just a shot in the dark to see, if I could figure out where the heck this computer was. I get a response from Fisheye Fox. So now I'm talking to Fisheye Fox myself. And so I'm like, hey, what's going on? How you been? When are we getting together? And he's, I'm back at school. So we're confounded right now.
Detective Dragos reaches out to her contact at America Online, who is able to determine that John Fox, aka Fisheye Fox, is now chatting from a different location entirely.
And we're like, well, what's this other location? And they said it goes back to SUNY Maritime, which is State University of New York Maritime College, which was a college, in the Bronx.
A check with the campus security office reveals there is a sophomore enrolled at SUNY Maritime, named John Fox.
It was after midnight, I'm sure, at that point. And basically, we all responded in a caravan from that location. Everybody drove out to the Bronx to go and talk to John Fox.
The investigators coordinate with SUNY campus police to locate John Fox's dorm room.
It's 1 a.m. in the morning, and now you're going to talk to someone whose part in this whole thing is still unclear. We do know that John Fox is connected to the screen name that Michael Sandy was talking to. So everyone's antennas are up.
When the 19-year-old student comes to the door, he appears surprised, but his demeanor is calm.
So the investigators are now talking to John Fox at his dorm, and they're asking him, what was your weekend like? And he proceeds to tell them, well, I was just hanging out with some friends, and we were just drinking some beers, just chilling out for the weekend, just a few friends having a good time. During this interview, John Fox starts to get nervous, and his answers start to contradict themselves. This is going from an interview turning into an interrogation.
John Fox agrees to accompany the detectives to the 61st Precinct in Brooklyn.
John Fox is saying in his statement that he and Anthony Fortunato and Gary Timmons and the Russian kid, Alex, are hanging out by a local deli. They decide to go back to the house where John Fox logs into the computer. And he admits that Fisheye Fox is his screen name, but that his friends must have been using his screen name to have a conversation, because he knew nothing about this conversation. But then he starts to turn around and say, well, we were just looking to have a little fun. What does that mean? What does it mean that we're looking to have a little fun? And he starts to basically incriminate himself. And he claims Anthony Fortunato is the one who sort of hatched this scheme to go into a gay chat room, talk with someone who's looking to meet up with another man, and then meet up with that person to rob them under the assumption that the gay man won't go to the police.
The reality that some folks actually feel a certain amount of shame, and so they would be less likely to report. They would be less likely to make a complaint.
It was a very powerful set of facts. There was something particularly chilling about how this man was lured out to his death, basically.
It could have been anyone. They weren't looking for a black man, they weren't looking for a white man, they were looking for a victim. And unfortunately, they chose Michael Sandy.
John Fox admits to NYPD detectives that he, Anthony Fortunato, and a group of their friends used the screen name Fisheye Fox in a chat room to set up a meeting with Michael Sandy under the guise of a date, with the intention of robbing him.
So they met on the street. John Fox and him had a brief conversation, and Fortunato and then a couple of their other friends actually were in the area. So Michael got spooked. His spidey sense was tingling. He left. All was good.
Detectives believe that while Michael returned home, John Fox and his friends didn't want to give up.
They start drinking beers again, and they say, oh, maybe we can find somebody else. In the interim, Michael reaches back out. I said, hey, I just want to hang out with you. I don't want to do a group thing, so let's just me and you hang out. So John was like, all right, cool. We'll do that. So he came back.
They all get to Plum Beach, and they approach a blue Mazda, which is Michael Sandy's car. Alex starts to assault Michael Sandy. Michael Sandy breaks away from the assault, and they start to chase him.
Where was he going to go? If they were going to prevent him from getting into his car, he's going onto the highway.
Imagine the sheer terror that he was probably feeling when he's chased onto a busy highway running for his life and running into a speeding vehicle. Those last seconds of his life were seconds that he didn't deserve.
That car takes off, never stops. And then the men, they drag him to the side of the road. One of them goes into his pockets, empties everything, and they take off.
John Fox, he says they all fled the scene, and then they all went back to the house, and they were all shaken up by this whole scenario.
It's almost like classic stupid kids, but there was a coldness about it as well.
Police begin to investigate the friends John Fox says took part in the scheme. And when they learn the home address of Anthony Fortunato, the pieces of the puzzle start to come together. Fortunato's house is next door to the Brooklyn home the detectives visited the night before, where a rogue computer was logged into the Wi-Fi.
So they go to Anthony Fortunato's house to talk to him, and he claims, yeah, I'll come talk to you. I'm just going to get a lawyer, and I'll come down to the station to talk to you guys.
But Fortunato never shows up at the precinct as promised.
Then suddenly we get a call from his mother stating that, well, Anthony can't come talk to you because he's in the hospital. He tried to kill himself. However, John Fox has implicated two other people, Gary Timmons and this other kid known as the Russian kid, Alex. So the investigators looking through MySpace with the information given to them by John Fox find out Russian kid's true identity is now revealed by someone by the name of Ilya Shurov. So now investigators can go talk to them.
Fox, Timmons, and Shirov all confess to their roles in the attack, pointing to Fortunato as the mastermind of the plan. Meanwhile, at Brookdale Hospital, Michael Sandy's family is facing a terrible choice.
So Michael Sandy's in the hospital unconscious. He's dying. He's not going to recover. The doctors know this. Doctors make the family aware of this. And he will never be the person that he was.
On October 12th, Michael Sandy spends his 29th birthday with his family holding vigil in his ICU room. They know they are spending their final moments with him.
They wanted to wait so that he didn't die on his birthday.
So a day after his 29th birthday, his family made that awful, awful decision.
I received a call from Mrs. Sandy and said, we took Michael off life support. So, just always thinking that this can't be true, but these emotions just kind of come over you. And still trying to process it. But, you kind of go through those moments when you can and be supportive for the family. But you kind of just feel your whole body collapse in that moment. It takes your breath away, in that moment.
You need to let him go. You feel robbed. You really, especially when it comes with an act that has such malice for anything of joy and life and love.
Investigators now have statements from 3 of their suspects, but they still can't speak with Anthony Fortunato, the alleged mastermind of the scheme, who remains hospitalized after his suicide attempt. While they wait for his condition to improve, they execute a search warrant at his home.
We go back out to the location, and when law enforcement gets there, they said, all right, you're looking for computers, here's our computer. This is the only computer we have. But we're able to actually look at the computer and immediately say, no, that's not the computer we're looking for, because it is mapped to the manufacturer. And in this case, we knew we were looking for a Dell computer. The computer that they happened to pull out of a hat and say was the only computer in the house was not a Dell. So we were like, no, try again. And they didn't have any other computers that they were willing to voluntarily turn over. So a search of the residence commenced as authorized by the search warrant. Hidden in the basement was a Dell laptop. That was the computer that was connected to the IP address that was connected to Fisheye Fox during the crime. So we knew we found what we were looking for. It basically was the smoking gun.
By the time Fortunato is released from the hospital, Kings County prosecutors are prepared to act. They now have everything they need to file charges of attempted robbery and manslaughter, but they're also considering a unique enhancement to the charges that's rarely been tried before.
This was a real social problem that people were being targeted as victims of a crime because they belonged to certain groups. And in this case, they were looking to select a gay person, and that's what they did. That is the element that establishes the hate crime.
Four men are facing charges in the attack that killed Michael Sandy. And prosecutors are prepared to also try them on a rare and untested set of charges.
This was one of the first cases I can recall clearly where the hate crimes enhancement was actually used in New York State for an anti-gay murder. And I think it was important for the community for this to be called what it was. It had a lot of meaning for people.
On October 25th, 2006, John Fox, Ilya Shurov, and Anthony Fortunato are indicted on charges of second-degree murder, attempted robbery, and manslaughter as a hate crime. That same day, Gary Timmons, who was a minor at the time of the crime, pleads guilty to attempted robbery in the second degree.
You want to make sure that when a case is tried as a hate crime, it has to specifically plug into the statutes of the hate crimes law. And the sentence that is usually handed down is a much heavier sentence.
But as the date of trial approaches in October 2007, nearly a year to the day from the attack on Michael at Plum Beach, Anthony Fortunato's attorney mounts a stunning defense to the hate crime charges.
Fortunato tried to pull a rabbit out of the hat and said it can't be a hate crime because he came out of the closet himself. He identified himself as being a gay man and said that because he's gay, it can't be a hate crime because you can't hate gay people if you're gay also.
It was an extremely flimsy defense legally because hate is not an aspect of the crime itself. That's not something that the prosecution has to establish in order to establish somebody's guilt of a hate crime. He could have mixed motives, but it doesn't get him off the hook. From the get-go, the whole plan was based on targeting a gay person.
John Fox and Anthony Fortunato are acquitted of murder, but convicted of manslaughter and attempted robbery as hate crimes, receiving sentences of 7 to 21 years. A month later, Ilya Shurov pleads guilty to the same charges and receives a sentence of 17 and a half years. Gary Timmons, who testifies as a prosecution witness, receives a 4-year sentence.
When they were found guilty, it was a natural release to have some vindication, but I don't know about the justice part.
I absolutely cannot say as to whether or not justice was served in this case. Maybe it's for Michael's parents to answer that question, for Michael's soul or spirit to answer that question, even in an odd way for his perpetrators to answer that question. Because I would have a hard time feeling that justice were served if they did not come to understand the gravity and tragedy of what they did.
This case sort of impacted me on a personal level. Back in 2006, I was a single gay man on the internet, talking to people and meeting up with people. For all practical purposes, I could have been Michael Sandy.
Michael Sandy's closest friends are left with nothing now, except their memories, and a few artifacts of his last days, like this video from the fall of 2006, when he enjoyed a final evening out in Brooklyn with his friends.
Can I put my glasses on?
I've been single for 5 years. I lived on Long Island forever. No one ever wanted to take me to dinner. No one to ever go out. You know, I moved here to find a husband. I mean, stop.
That is too much. You heard his laugh.
You know, I moved here to find a husband. I mean, stop.
He was a wonderful human being from head to toe.
Wonderful. Okay, it's rocking.
He exudes this wonderful light that shines and magical laughter and smiles. And he loved life to the fullest.